everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Raad Life. We have been on the air over 10 years, and we are back in our new studio. So I am thrilled, beyond thrilled, to actually have as my guest today Mr. Stephen M.R. Covey. And the name may sound familiar, and we'll address that in a minute. But I'm so honored to have you on, Stephen. Really, and if you wouldn't mind, just take a minute because your background is so rich and so diverse. I'm not even going to do it a service to try to introduce you. So would you just take a few minutes and just tell people about you that don't know because they've been living under a rock or something about you?
Okay. Yeah. So I'm Stephen M.R. Covey, and my father is the one that is better known. He's Stephen R. Covey, and he's the one who wrote The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and which really has had impact all over the world. Some 50 million copies now, which is amazing, and it still is a bestseller today, some 36 years after first being released. And so
it's amazing.
Yeah, it's amazing. So
there's a reason why that is the case, but it is amazing. And if somebody hasn't read that book, go get that book because it is as true today as it was when he wrote it.
Absolutely. Remains relevant. And the reason it's relevant is because it's based on principles that are timeless. And now it's a new context, new time, but the principles still are vital. And so that's part of it. And so basically I kind of have two halves, two careers, and it's a little bit aligned with some of your thinking, Raad, of this shift that happens. But the first half was when my father was living and the like, and I really built the business, ran the business.
Yeah.
And we built Covey Leadership Center and started working really all over the world and built the organization, leadership development, and I was the CEO. At some point, we did a merger with Franklin Quest,
yes,
to form Franklin Covey, and we combined. And by the way, it was interesting because the first 15 years plus of my career was very focused on the business side, being an operator. I had an MBA, this type of thing. And honestly, Raad, it was a little intimidating to think about doing what my dad was doing because he'd written the 7 Habits. no matter what, I wasn't going to come up with the 7 Habits, that big of a book. And I had his same name. And so it was almost easier, even safer for me to go down the
organization or the management side of things.
Yeah. I just got, hey, I'm the operator. He's the thought leader. I'm the operator.
Yeah.
And it felt safer to me because I thought if I try to be a thought leader, I'm not going to measure up to my dad. I'll just be a poor man's version. But it's interesting. So I did that for 15 years, and then we did this merger, and the merger was painful.
When was that, Stephen? When was the merger?
Okay, the merger was in 97.
Okay,
and it was painful. The first year and a half, we had been arch competitors. Saw the whole world differently. Good people on both sides, but just came together as competitors, and there was low trust. And everything was being slowed down, and we lost the energy, the joy. We weren't as creative, and we realized our problem was not the idea of coming together. Our problem was that we didn't trust each other, and we needed to do that. And so we intentionally focused on building that trust, and it changed everything.
Okay, before you go there though, and we this is why we do the show the way we do it, because nuggets and opportunities come up in the course of having a conversation, which we as a society need to relearn how to have a conversation again. We do. Right? I mean, there's another book. The art of remembering how to have a conversation. Like not and yes, we're doing it virtually here, but at least we're doing it face to face and in real time, right?
Right.
But you, my friend, you opened the door for me, so I got to ask a few things, right? Because I had a similar thing with my dad, where my dad, it was a very not known as in the same way that your father was known, but my father was very instrumental in and very well respected in the field of civil engineering and projects in the Middle East. And I was going to follow in those footsteps, and then got derailed a little bit because the school I was going to go to, which was his alma mater, was in Lebanon. There was a war going on. So that my mom's like, no, you can't go to a war zone to go to get a degree, right? So I went down a different path, but I always have had that shadow of my father, right?
Yeah.
And you opened the door. So I got to ask you, like looking back at that, I'm sure, I mean, fathers and sons, right? Relationships.
Mm-hmm.
But that was probably pretty shaping, right? For you, like to be in sort of not necessarily in the shadow, but on the side of this presence that's in your life. Like, how did you navigate that? If you don't mind me getting a little personal here.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to. I always had a great relationship with my father, and he was extraordinarily abundant and really affirming and believed in people, and he believed in me and communicated that. So it was mostly just more on my end, my own insecurities of kind of feeling like, hey, how I could never measure up to what he's done and is doing. And, he's this thought leader, this legendary thought leader, great speaker, presenter, great author.
Yeah.
And I had some ideas that I thought I'd want to talk about, but I was scared to go down that path. It was intimidating. Not that he was intimidating, but I just felt like I wouldn't measure up.
Right. And thank you for literally, answering it the way that I was hoping you would, because in many ways, and many times, it's not the other person. It's not the presence, I mean, rightfully so. I mean, your father was very instrumental in leading the path and opening the eyes of a lot of people. I mean, I remember, like I mentioned to you, I went to the Drucker Center, right? And I mean, Peter Drucker was phenomenal in being able to translate the complexities of things in a corporate environment and a management structure in layman's terms for people that were coming up through the structure. I mean, that was sort of where the magic was. Absolutely. And the man wasn't necessarily the best presenter or in an auditorium, but that was his strength, and it was still kind of intimidating to be in that presence. But the intimidation tends to be not that, but internal. Like you were saying, the insecurity is your own insecurity, is not because you had a strained relationship with your father or your father wasn't supportive. That's very, very human, my friend. I mean, thank you for sharing that. That's pretty.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, that's real. It was me. It was internal. Yeah. It was entirely me kind of projecting out how I might be interpreted. And that was frightening to me. And that's why I'm saying it was easier to kind of do something different than he was doing. So I wouldn't have that comparison of not measuring up.
It was still supportive, but you're in a different role. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's what I did. And I did it pretty well. Mm-hmm. And we had a lot of success. But here's what was interesting. Here's where this shifted and how I overcome my personal kind of fear. Once we went through this merger and we realized trust was getting in the way, we didn't trust each other. And then we focused on building that trust with each other, and we succeeded at it. We became intentional about it. Mm-hmm. Walked away from that experience saying, you know what? I just found what it is that I want to talk about. It's trust.
Yeah.
That this changes everything. I just witnessed this. Mm-hmm. I saw this merger going from struggling to succeeding as we built the trust with each other and changing everything. And then I thought, we're not talking about trust enough. We're giving lip service to it. We're not really focusing on it. And the idea that trust not only changes everything, that trust is learnable as a skill, as a competency. We can get good at this. I said, I think I found what I want to talk about, what I want to write about, what I want to speak about. And it's interesting, Raad. Once I kind of found my voice, and it took me, there's a 5-year process of coming to grips with this. Once I found my voice, suddenly the fear dissipated.
Okay, well, I
was afraid to follow and do something and venture out and say, I'm going to write a book on this.
Yeah.
And because I no longer had that fear holding me back when I found my why.
Yeah.
It
And,
changed
and, and,
everything.
and it was as a result of something that you encountered that you basically were experiencing, not necessarily where it was clear. Like it was a byproduct of something that was going on.
That's
So,
right.
yeah,
It emerged
it
from that.
emerged.
It's not an intentional thing.
So what do you think? What do you think made you be able to realize that? Because I always try to convey and try to live by the fact that you need to always remain open to receive. And in a situation like that, you may not be intentionally saying, I am going to basically get into the space of trust and write about it and all stuff, but you're open to receive. And the uncertainty, and this is really a big one. It's been a big one for me recently, and I think life basically presents you this over and over on occasion. But embracing the uncertainty and embracing the coming at something from a place of abundance versus fear,
Yeah.
and being open to the possibilities of positive, right? But there is no guarantee, and instead of looking at the lack of guarantee as being a stumbling block, looking at the lack of guarantee as being more of an openness to what could happen and not being limited. And I think it's funny, as we get older, that muscle becomes a little bit more atrophied. And I think when we're younger, it's a little bit more. I mean, maybe we don't know we don't know any better, but that's a kind of a thing that's interesting. And you kind of we wanted to kind of lead into this thing. Obviously, I told you this is sort of like where I first encountered
Yeah.
Stephen here, and so I loved reading that book. But for you, having found that why and been in that why now for, gosh, I mean, almost
Yeah.
over
For
over
it's
20
really
years.
been 20 years. I came out. So my first book was The Speed of Trust.
Almost 30 years.
Yeah, that's actually 2006.
Yeah.
But the merger took place in 97.
Yeah.
And that was a 5-year process of trying to figure things out. And then it was in 2002, I said, I want to write about trust. I want to talk about trust. It took me 4 years to get the book out. There was a lot of uncertainty there. I did not know the path forward. I did not, I was taking a leap.
Yeah. So what was it? Take me back to when. I mean, it sounds like you went through the process, and as a part of going through the process, you came to this realization, and then you embraced that because it resonated with you or aligned with you at that point in your life, which timing is a big deal too.
Right.
What was that moment like? That aha moment like when you're like, this is what I need to, because like you said, there was uncertainty. Like you didn't know how it was going to be received, whether this is just, but you still pursued it because it was, your why was important to you.
Yeah. Yeah. For me, the aha moment kind of came after I'd been grappling with this, working on it, but I saw what was happening with how the world changed when we went from low trust to high trust. I'd seen that. I'd been part of that. Raad, in this process, there was a time where, half the people didn't trust me. It was almost divided down party lines, It was the Covey side, the Franklin side. And I came from the Covey side, of course, with my name. Half the side didn't trust me. And I felt like, gosh, I'm a good person. I haven't done anything bad.
Right.
And
Why wouldn't they trust
personal.
you?
It was so personal. It was like a crucible I went through, but I also saw it shift and flip when I became intentional about it and let out in ways that created trust, including extending trust to others. The fastest way to build trust is to give trust. We got to give it to get it. Right. And so at some point, I said, this is a big idea that we all know at one level that trust matters, but we're underestimating it by a factor of 10, maybe by a factor of 100. And the fact that it's learnable, and that most of the stuff out there on trust was either too academic or too simplistic.
Too ethereal. Yeah.
Yeah, either too ethereal or too simplistic, kind of just
Yeah.
trust people and not enough nuance behind it, not
Yeah.
enough rigor.
Yeah.
And I felt like, hey, I can do this. And then what happened is I suddenly felt like I felt confidence in that voice that that I I feel like I have an unique insight to offer on this. I feel what happened is over time I felt like I was a sense of calling,
Mm-hmm.
a sense of real purpose that this
Mm-hmm.
is it.
Mm-hmm.
And it came to me, and I did not know the path forward.
Mm-hmm.
But I said I need to focus on trust,
So what?
and it's going to work out.
So what were what? Not knowing what the next step forward was, what was the first step that you took in trying to do this? Was it just opening yourself to input from different, like, what was it that then you took as that first step? Because a lot of people, I got a lot of people that are sort of our friends or listeners that are sort of stuck in this sort of midlife situation,
Yeah.
like this sort of navigating change, questioning what's next, when someone feels like they're stuck, right? And they may have a sense of something they can't verbalize yet, like what we refer to usually as like the purpose or the why, right? But
Right.
they don't know where they can begin. So it sounds to me like you didn't necessarily know where to begin, but you had this sort of internal calling. So what
Yep.
what were the first step?
First step I took was I went to a friend of mine who was a former colleague that I'd worked with, and we had a great relationship, high trust between us. But he was a real visionary.
Mm.
And his name was Greg Link, and it's who I formed a relationship with of around creating a company. But I went to Greg because he also was a very can-do person, extremely optimistic. And it was still in the real world. He was realistic about things, but he believed in possibilities. He saw all the things that could go right, not just the things that could go wrong. And I knew if I could talk to Greg, and that Greg could he could help me fill in some of the gaps of what I needed to do. And he did just that. I went to Greg. I said, I feel like I got to focus on trust. And I have no idea what to do. What do you think? And he said, I know exactly what you need to do. You need to write a book on this.
Mm-hmm.
That's the first thing we'll do. We'll write a book, and you don't write a book unless you speak about it. So you got to start speaking about it. I said, oh, I'm not a speaker. He goes, yes, you are. You've got a message. And if you got a message, you got passion. And if we start speaking about this, we can take that, we can build a book on it. We write a book on this, we can get you out there. But he gave me belief in myself. He believed in me.
Yeah.
And he helped me come to believe in myself that the calling was real and that I could do it. And here's a way forward. He gave me ideas. He gave me a roadmap. And so that was my first step, as I went to someone who I trusted and who also I felt who believed in me.
Yeah.
And
he basically did just that. He gave you that reassurance that you needed to take that first step, not knowing where that step was going to land necessarily.
Absolutely. He gave me both the reassurance, but also actually he gave me some confidence that this is in me.
Yeah.
That I could do this. He'd worked with me long enough in the past to know what I was capable of. And so for him, he said, you can do this. You got this in you. Here's a roadmap. So it was reassurance, but also it was a sense of a jolt of confidence that I can do this. And you need that.
You do. We all do. We all do, because as much as, unless you are an absolute narcissist, you always have some personal doubt. And on occasion, you need a little bit of boost. And, if you can give it to yourself from a position of humility, then that's great. And I think we all need to develop the ability to do that, because sometimes people are busy in their own lives around us and they're not really there to give us that. But if we find ourselves, by example of Greg, it's like if we find ourselves in a situation where we can take a moment to actually give a person a sense of supportive confidence when they're just wavering for a minute, That's something we should basically take seriously doing. Like that is part of being there for one another, that sense of community. And I think, thank you for sharing that, because people will go, well, you're with your dad and with all this stuff and you be walking around, but you're like, I'm not a speaker. I'm not, those are like, for somebody who's looking from the outside, they'd probably go, how is that possible that he's not really feeling that sense of confidence of this stuff? But I thank you again for being very real with
Yeah.
me today.
Yeah. I feel like I'm not a speaker. I'm not a writer. I said, I'm an operator.
But
But Greg said, now you can speak and write on this.
well, but what you shared a minute ago, which is golden. I mean, we can stop the show right here, right? Was where you said you have a message.
Yep.
And you have a voice, and so whether it's refined, whether it's I have people that are constantly wanting to basically say, well, I need to coach you on how to speak, and I'm like, no, I don't want you to coach me for how I speak. I'm going to just speak with my truth, and I'm going to speak. And I'm not holding that. My appeal is to try to make sure everybody likes what I'm saying, but I'm at the same time respectful. So you have a voice, you have a message that's kind of burning in you from point of interest, and you're excited enough to share it. That immediately makes you a speaker. I mean, I don't think that the olden days in the schools of thought where they had the shamans and people that were standing around the fireplace basically telling stories. I don't think anybody kind of walked them through a PR firm or some sort of coaching classes of tell the story, right?
It was in them.
It was in them. Right. So let me ask you this, because I want to ask you. So you started down this path of trust. So what does trust mean to you today, and how has it changed maybe over the years?
Yeah, to me, trust is everything. In fact, the subtitle of the Speed of Trust book is "The One Thing That Changes Everything."
Everything.
Because, think about it. Let's take relationships first.
Yeah.
The essence of a great relationship is when people can and do trust each other.
Yeah.
And those are the most enduring relationships, when they're based upon mutual trust. They're also the most productive ones. They're also the happiest ones. Mm-hmm. And whereas the very definition of a bad relationship is, low trust. I don't trust the person. It's kind of how you would define a bad relationship. But high trust is so foundational, and it creates energy and joy and happiness. But that also is even with yourself. Mm-hmm. As I know you like to focus on, Rad, that, learning to trust yourself. That self-trust is really the first trust.
Foundational.
That leads out to the relationship trust. Because if you don't trust yourself, you're going to have a hard time building trust with other people.
Right. You're always going to be you're always going to be in a protective position coming at those relationships, and you're not going to put yourself out in a way that, to your point, inspires trust by example. So, and if you don't have that foundation within yourself, then you don't really have it to project either.
You don't. So it's inside out. Mm-hmm. Self-trust precedes the relationship trust, which precedes building the trust on a team, right, or in a group, in an organization. And then you ripple out from there into the marketplace with customers and partners, and then into all society. So I call these the 5 waves of trust, mm-hmm. from self to relationship to team to the organization to the market to society, inside out. And that is impacting everything.
Yeah.
And in our world today, we're seeing a decline of trust.
Big time.
Big time is a crisis of trust. And so, distrust is contagious. It tends to spread. And so I think more than ever before, we need to take steps to counteract that.
So how do we rebuild trust after it's been broken, Stephen?
Well, once it's been broken, then, if you had it and you lost it, you can't just talk your way back into it.
Right.
But you can behave your way back into it.
Tell me more.
Put it this way.
Yeah, tell me more.
What's that?
Tell me more.
Yeah. Well, here's the principle. You can't talk your way out of a problem that you behaved your way into. You know, if we've lost people's trust through our behavior, words alone won't get it back.
Yeah.
But you can behave your way back into trust, just like you behaved your way out of it. Now, you behave your way out of it usually a lot faster. You can lose the trust very fast.
Yeah.
Rebuilding it takes longer. It's harder. It may not be possible in every situation. You know, you might have lost trust, or, you know, there might be a trust breach somewhere between people where the nature of the loss of trust is so egregious that they're not going to be able to restore it.
Right.
So I'm not naive. Restoring trust is hard, and it may not be possible in every situation.
So how do you evaluate, I mean, for somebody that's basically not driven by personal value to basically say, I'm going to try to repair the trust because it's a reflection of myself if I do or do not. For people that are evaluating this, especially like, let's just cover in terms of, you know, organizations, because personal relationships are a little bit more tricky in terms of, right? But let's talk about something that's a little bit more black and white. Like, how do you evaluate when it is worth rebuilding the trust? Is it something that you evaluate in advance? And then basically, you know, very, very, very efficiently allocate resources, or like you said, you can't really talk yourself back into it. It's a behavioral thing, but then there's a timeline and it takes longer. So do you do it in advance? Is it something that can be done in advance, or is it something that is only clarified in the doing?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of both. I think if the advance is the idea of the paradigm that trust matters, and that the best organizations, teams, are based upon trust, a culture of trust. You do better work. You do it faster. There's less cost when there's trust. There's more creativity. There's more innovation. There's more collaboration, more engagement of people. And so I think, you know, if that's the mindset, then you're always saying, look, we want to get work done, but do it in a way that grows trust. We're always trying to do two things: perform and build trust. Mm-hmm. It's not just, I mean, someone could perform and lose trust in the process by how they go about doing it. Mm-hmm. And that performance is not near as good as someone that performs in a way that also builds trust. So that's a mindset that I'm always trying to build trust. And so if I lose it, I'm saying I'm going to take steps to compensate, to get it back, to earn it back, because it's worth it. So that's what I'm saying. That's you're always planning in advance. But then sometimes it is in the moment when you realize, hey, look, this isn't working. Mm-hmm. And that's what happened on the merger. We were together. We really had done nothing to lose it. It's just that we didn't have it at all because we'd been competitors for a decade, competing in significant ways. And now we're thrown together. We didn't trust each other. And in the moment we said, this isn't working. Mm-hmm. And it's not going to work because we're together. And we're going to continue to be kind of two separate companies operating as if they were one, and yet not trusting each other. And it's not going to go anywhere. Or we can say, you know what? It's worth changing. Mm-hmm. Because how it's working now is not working. Yeah. And I think that it could work if we could trust each other. So, you know, you can do the analysis. You can do a cost-benefit of analysis. But if you understand the real power of trust, when there's low trust and you got to work together as teams, that is suboptimal. Your performance will be nowhere near your potential. Yeah. And so that's where you say, hey, this is worth it. And it's worth
worth doing the work for it.
Doing the work is worth behaving way into it. And it does take time. Yeah. It'd be nice if you could talk your way into it, but you can't. You got to behave your way into it. That takes time. That's an effort. That's an investment. That's why you do want to know why you're doing it. Yeah. And the why is that you can perform far better. And the data on that's overwhelming, about 3 times better up to that. And you're happier. Mm-hmm. There's greater energy, greater joy, greater well-being. Mm-hmm. So it's better for the business. It's better for the people. It's better for you personally to operate with trust.
So so that sounds to me that's also a little bit of kind of almost letting go of control.
Yeah, it is. That's this new book. My whole thing is what's getting in the way of trust is that fear, letting go of control. That scripting that we have. Mm-hmm. To be in control. Mm-hmm. And it's tough to let go. Either I don't know how, or I'm
Mm-hmm.
afraid to do it,
Mm-hmm.
or I've been burned before and I don't want to get burned again. It's risky, all these factors, or, this is really scary stuff. It's scary. Or maybe there's a scarcity mindset instead of an abundance one, as you referred
Right.
to earlier.
Right.
All those things can get in the way of, letting go of control. And I'm arguing that if you trust right, if you are trusting in the right ways, where you build the agreement with someone around the trust being given them.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not just kind of a blind trust of, hey, I trust you, do whatever you want.
Mm-hmm.
No, it's a smart trust with expectations
Mm-hmm.
around the trust being given, including around outcomes and guidelines to work within. Correct. And resources that they have. And then you build into the agreement that you build with another, you build in accountability to those expectations.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you do this well, if you build the agreement up front with people, you can actually let go. Mm-hmm. You can empower someone and they feel empowered, they feel trusted, and yet you've not lost control in the sense that the control resides in the agreement that you've built and the trust that you're giving around that agreement, but it's not in you having to hover over
right
and micromanage the person.
Well, it's a shared position, right? It's a shared position. It's a shared control. It's a shared accountability. And that's not going to happen without communication.
It's not going to happen without communication, and it's not going to happen without letting go of control. But the shared nature of it actually increases the both the probabilities of their success, mm-hmm. but also of you not, quote, losing control. So you can be control. You can have control without being controlling.
Right. Very good differentiated there.
Right.
And all of the stuff that we're talking about, I mean, I know it's kind of like, it has so many implications and applications in our life and in our society and our world today, but especially today, especially in the current climate of what's going on. And I'm not even talking about the political, I'm talking about just the economic climate, what have you. There's a lot, we are living in a time of massive uncertainty, professionally, socially, personally, right? So how can someone continue to not only trust, but inspire others when they themselves are feeling unsure? And I'm sure a lot of people that are in leadership positions or in leadership positions in their families that are feeling that uncertainty, which is completely palatable right now.
Understandable. Absolutely.
Yeah. How does a person continue to inspire in their conditions like this? How do we get there?
Yeah. Here's a couple of thoughts on that. First of all, I love that you're highlighting inspire, because especially now, people want to be inspired. It's what they want from leaders. It's what they want from others. And part of this Trust and Inspire book that you held up is the idea that inspiring others is actually something that we can learn to do. It's not just for the charismatic. We've often conflated inspiration with charisma, thinking, gosh, you got to be charismatic to inspire.
Right.
No, they're different things. And, I know some people who are charismatic, but who are not inspiring.
Right.
And I know others who no one would describe as charismatic, but who are extraordinarily inspiring. So inspiring starts with kind of who you are as a person. So even though there's uncertainty and the like, that sense of self-trust, that inspires, that sense of purpose that you have, you finding your why. Mm-hmm. I love the word inspire. It comes from the Latin inspirare, mm-hmm. to breathe life into. Mm-hmm. So when you inspire another, you're trying to breathe life into the relationship, mm-hmm. into the team, into the culture, and that's such a important way to lead, especially today when people aren't quite sure. So how do you breathe life into? Well, you yourself make sure you have that life. You find your why. You become inspired yourself. Mm-hmm. So I use a candle metaphor that, if you have a lit candle, you can light a lot of other candles. Mm-hmm. But if your candle is unlit, mm-hmm. you can't light any any other candles.
Mm-hmm.
And so you want to inspire others, first become inspired yourself. It's that inner work, that self work.
Yeah, no, it's so true. You know, you reminded me back, well, not back in the day, but when we first got on Facebook and stuff like that, it seems like it was forever. It wasn't really that long ago, but there was no Facebook. But I remember when you were able to put something like not just your headshot for your profile, but like a banner thing.
Yeah.
And I always gravitated. This is going back almost 20 years, or 15 years. I always gravitated to the word inspire. Like the word inspire was always had like a sort of a quiet confidence empowerment to it. It wasn't barbarian at the gate, kind of like, Conanish. It was also seemed a little refined. Like there was a little refinement to the word inspire. And I always gravitated, I don't know whether I came up with it or I saw it somewhere, whatever, but the combination of the word, and there's a little play on the rhythm, but aspire to inspire, right? And what you just defined is exactly that. But in order for you to aspire to inspire, and sometimes it may actually prove to be that by waking up in the morning, having a day where it's just you're kind of clouded, whatever, but that is a guiding light that you have, is to aspire to inspire. You will find ways to re-engage with life, re-engage with the people around you in a positive, and reinvigorate yourself if you actually take that on. I think a lot of teachers do that. Like when they, regardless of what's going on with them, they walk into that classroom aspiring to inspire the students, and in that energy, you also get rewarded.
That's beautiful. I love that. First of all, I love the phrase "aspire
To inspire. Yeah,
it's a beautiful play on words, but it's also a beautiful sentiment, both in intent and motive. It's beautiful. And I love your teacher example, because the teachers, they're doing it in the moment. They often are unappreciated, undervalued by the system. They feel it sometimes that way from their own principles. They don't feel fully trusted and this and that. And yet in the moment, they walk into that classroom. And in fact, in spite of the fact that they're often not inspired by those above them and around them, in that moment, what kicks in for almost all of them is that mindset of aspire to inspire.
Yeah, it's fascinating how many aspects of life actually translate down to some of these basic fundamental elements. And in our rush in modern society to be overwhelmed, overloaded, I wrote something the other day on LinkedIn where it was like underpurposed, overpurposed, right? Like even the search for purpose could be something where you're like, right? And in the speed of the life that we live, we sometimes forget that some of these foundational elements are not only important, but they are worthy of our time and attention. Because when we allow them to slip away, may not be apparent at the moment, but eventually it's eroding ourselves. And to your point, when we start eroding ourselves, we are no longer that candle that is lit. And when we allow that to go longer, we start losing the tether of what that looked like, and remembrance. And that kind of stuff requires stillness. It requires stopping. It requires all this stuff that everything around us says do not do. Put blanks on your calendar, rather than look at every blank on your calendar as being a symbol of lack of productivity. Even redefine what the word productivity really means. Stillness and silence. This conversation we're having is a productive time of value. And hopefully others that are listening to it will find it that way. But it's almost like flies in the face of what society says you should do.
Right. Because society is trapped in the paradigm of busyness.
Yeah.
As if busyness equals productivity.
Right.
They're different things.
Right.
And someone could be very busy and not productive.
Right.
And so sometimes the best way to be productive is to be still, to your point, and to take that time and to be engaged in real conversation,
Mm-hmm.
to listen,
Yeah.
to understand another and have them feel understood. And suddenly your influence with that person has grown because they feel heard by you. They feel understood. And they're now far more open to your influence. So your ability to have effectiveness with them goes up. But we're in an efficiency mindset.
Yeah, yeah. The word. I mean, you're talking about play on words. I always found it fascinating that the word business and busyness is so close, yet it's just slightly, different in the way that it's written. Yeah, I think we have to go back. And this is where that midlife situation gives us an opportunity to do that, because sometimes it's not by choice. Sometimes it's because we've been running in such a manner, doing things, being productive, and all of a sudden we're retired, or we are forced into retirement, or that we are basically faced with a medical situation, or we have something that happens in our life that's disruptive, whether it's an end of a relationship or parents getting sicker, and all of a sudden this sort of this repetitive rhythm that you've been kind of on for the last 15 years or so, all of a sudden is no longer possible. And that's when we're forced to do this. And again, I think we struggle when that happens, and we even fight against it to try to get back to that what we are familiar with as fast as possible. And yet there's an opportunity, and kind of COVID did this for us cumulatively, by the way. I think it caused us to have to stop, right? And I think some people got that. They appreciated the stopping enough to adjust or re-examine or whatever. And it was fascinating for me to see how much businesses just wanted to get back to pre-COVID as fast as they could,
right?
Rather than take this as an opportunity to refine and elevate and evolve. But now all we do is we do the same stuff we used to do. We just do it quicker, faster, more with AI, less with human contact, right? And we'll see where the future leads us with that. But again, if you're in a position where you are in this midlife mess, mucky middle, as some people refer to it, it is also a great opportunity to slow down. From my perspective, from the design perspective, you can't fill a room with art on every inch of that wall and then be able to appreciate the pieces that are on the wall. You need the negative space in order to appreciate the actual value of the pieces that are there.
Right.
So filling our lives with every single moment with something, what are we running from?
Right. Yeah.
Right. What are we trying to escape? Like, reality, humanity? I mean, what is it that we're trying to escape? It's kind of a fascinating question.
It is. I like that. I love your metaphor of the art wall. And, it's the space that gives the existing art its context,
value,
and its value and meaning.
Yeah. And I think it's the same thing with relationships, Stephen, too, by the way. I think when we and guilty as charged, when we basically find ourselves in situations where we're basically just over delivering, over giving, over engaged, looking for that validation from whether it's the report I just presented for my work, or from people around me, or even in the case with parental, that those are like, those relationships are very foundationally impacting, right? But when we are doing that, we're literally not giving ourselves the breathing space. We're not grounding ourselves in our foundational truths, trusting ourselves first in order to be able to inspire trust in others and in relationships with others. And we end up basically undermining the situation and stressing it out. I mean, on every level, like it's just too, the intensity level, the fact that it's moving so fast, there's no breathing room. You can't even stop and reflect and actually have have a moment to think something through, because you're just, and life is telling you this is how you got to do it.
Right. And the irony is we don't achieve what it is that we're trying to do. And we lose so much along the way.
Yeah. We undermine.
That efficiency paradigm doesn't work with people.
Yep.
See, I like to distinguish, things and people. You manage things,
Things.
you lead people.
Mm-hmm.
You're efficient with things.
Yeah.
You're effective with people. The moment we try to be efficient with people, we lose our effectiveness. With people, I've learned fast is slow
Mm-hmm.
and slow is fast. In other words, if
Mm-hmm.
I try to be efficient with people, get them into my timeline, just quickly, just go through it, go through the motions and just bark out the orders and this and that, I'm efficient. But you know what? In the long run, I haven't built trust, haven't built the relationship.
Right.
And when it comes down to it, I'm going to lose that talent. They're going to leave. They're going to go elsewhere. I'll take time. I got to replace them. It takes time. Got to train them. It just takes you longer. You end up going slow because
Mm-hmm.
I try to just be fast. But if I instead, up front, especially, go slow,
Mm-hmm.
build the relationship,
Mm-hmm.
build the trust, create the agreement together around expectations, around accountability, extend that trust, show that I care, focus on inspiring. I go slow. Yeah, it takes me some time up front.
Yeah.
But then you move fast because they trust you. They're not questioning the agenda and the motive. And I like to say nothing is as fast as the speed of trust. But we have to earn that. We have to build it. We got to go slow.
Yeah.
In order to go fast. And our reality is that it's all speed, speed, speed. I like speed. I wrote a book called The Speed of Trust, but the irony of it's trust that takes time.
Yeah.
Once you get that, then that's what makes things really work and relationships work. But you got to build it. Take that time, be still, build a relationship.
Well, and have the confidence in yourself and the trust in yourself that this is the process that you want to do. Because to your point, if you don't do it, if you don't give the space for that trust to engage, for people to feel equally represented in their involvement in this, like they're not being managed, they're not command and controlled, right?
Right.
You don't do that, and if you don't establish clear communication on expectations, accountability, and speak your truth in the process. That's the other thing too, is you got to be able to speak your truth in the process and not be so worried about the fact that you're going to undermine it by, like, your vulnerability is critical. Your truth with kindness is critical in the process of
Absolutely.
doing that.
It's that being authentic, your truth, but vulnerable at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
The combination, authenticity with vulnerability,
Yeah.
is a powerful combination. Yeah. And absolutely. So the ultimate go slow to go fast is that you focus on yourself first.
Yeah.
And you're kind of like, well, I got to work on all these other things, on things that I do. Focus on who you are.
Yeah.
As a person, and that sense of clarity, of integrity, of authenticity, of understanding who I am, what I'm about, what matters to me, and in a sense of my, what's my why, finding that around my roles, my values.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, that takes time. That inner work takes time. You can't shortcut it.
Well, it's harder than looking outwards, right?
It's harder than looking
right,
at.
because unless that outwards is reflecting a mirror to ourselves, but usually the focusing outwards at arm's length is a little easier for people to do. But the value and the worth and the thing that's sort of unshakable, almost, if you get to that point, that foundational unshakability, that will let you not only weather things, but it will also, I think, provide you with the best opportunity to be as inspirational, to provide that example or guidance, and not out of ego, but out of empathy, out of kindness, out of a sense of just community.
Beautiful. I love everything you just said. Unshakability.
Unshakability.
Yeah, I call it that changelessness amidst all this change swirling around us.
Because that's not going to stop. Like that change, right. that uncertainty, that sort of false sense of being able to control the uncontrollable, it's never going to change. It's as old as time, and it will only get more difficult.
That's what I was going to say. It's only going to accelerate the
Yeah,
pace, the amount, the type
right.
of change. So that's why our need for changelessness, for the unshakability, for the sense of self and who we are, our character, our competence, starting there is the right starting point. And
Well,
is what's going to make it powerful. Can I ask? I know we're
yeah,
close
yeah.
on time.
Yeah, I want to be very cognizant of your
Yeah,
availability.
let me give you something that hit me when you shared the
Sure.
idea of aspire to inspire. It's interesting as I worked on this book, Trust and Inspire, the whole idea was to kind of describe the kind of shift that we need to make in our leadership that better aligns with the new world that we're operating in, with all this change and disruption, and that the old model of leadership, command and control, that might have worked at a different time, different place,
Sure.
industrial age, is not very good in our world today. A world of change, of disruption, but also with the generations having completely different expectations of how they want to be engaged and led, and people having choices and options, and just really the understanding of human nature that people want autonomy and they want trust. And so we juxtaposition this with this idea from moving from command and control to trust and inspire. And we felt strong. It wasn't enough to say what you're moving from. Mm-hmm. That's vital. We have to leave behind command and control. We have to abandon it. Mm-hmm. It's vital to name and to describe what we're moving toward. Not just what we're moving from, but what we're moving toward. And we named it Trust and Inspire in contrast to a command and control. And my publisher asked me, why did you do that? And my first response was, because it's aspirational. It's aspirational. We want to aspire to trust and inspire. It gives people a vision of what's possible. It's aspirational, and it's a better way to lead.
Right.
And it's what people want, and they respond to it. I do, you do, we all do. What if we can be this kind of leader for others, just like perhaps maybe someone has been for us in our life?
Stephen.
And that's the idea, trust and inspire. So when you brought up aspire to inspire, I said that was my first response of why we named this. It's aspirational. It's what we want.
This is the perfect way to basically bring this thing to a close, because I'll tell you something, the having of these conversations is it's rarefied air, honestly. It is, because I told you for years, I had one of my images is still on there in one of my albums. It says aspire to inspire, aspire to inspire. And then I come across the book that says trust and inspire. And then we're having this conversation and you're saying aspire to trust and inspire, right?
That's right.
You know what I realized when you said that is I didn't have it completely correct. I got the aspire to inspire, but what I forgot at the time, which I was not really probably in the right headspace or too young to really realize, that I realized today as a result of this conversation, this exchange, is that the missing piece in that jigsaw puzzle was the trust factor. I have to aspire to trust first myself.
First yourself.
Right? To have that solid, grounded, foundational unshakability, to then be able to take that and inspire. Right. So I was missing a piece of the puzzle, Stephen, and you just gave it to me at a time. You know what they say about the teacher appears when the student is ready, right?
Absolutely.
So I really, really, I have a lot of gratitude for you. I'm touched that you would be on the show. This has been very meaningful exchange. I really thank you for taking the time. I know you have a definite cutoff. I would love to have more conversations with you. I'm sure we'll stay in touch. Thank you for so much for this inspiring, thoughtful, and deeply personal conversation.
Thank you, Rad. Thanks for having me and having this conversation with me. And I feel like I was the student, you were the teacher who appeared.
You're very kind, but
and also I say this, that I loved, you and I became friends through the beautiful post you had put out and said that you were inspired by Trust and Inspire, and it was on creating that garden,
Yeah.
and that as leaders we're gardeners, and we're not forcing the seeds to grow. We're creating conditions for them to grow, and it was that interchange that connected us, and then we've had this conversation. I feel like we've gone to the next level, so. I really love this, and I'm grateful to you and what you're doing, and this whole idea of what you're helping people see through the Raad Life and this way of thinking. It's beautiful.
Well, I am inspired by people, right? So I aspire to trust now and inspire.
Yeah, here's a concluding thought on that. I'll just give this beautiful quote by Albert Schweitzer, the great humanitarian, Renaissance man and humanitarian thinker. He said, in everybody's life, at some time, our inner fire goes out.
Mm-hmm.
It is then burst into flame by an encounter with another human being. We should all be thankful for those people who rekindle the inner spirit. Well, that's what you've done for me, Raad. You've rekindled my inner spirit.
And you did it for me as well, my friend. Thank you so much, Stephen, for being on. I definitely will find reasons to continue to be in touch, and we will do that. I cannot tell you how enjoyable this was.
Thank you.
And timely.
Thank you. I enjoyed it so much as well. Thank you, my friend.